In the United Kingdom, junior doctors have walked off the job to take part in a 5-day strike for a pay rise. The Russian government condemned the attack against journalist Margarita Simonian, director of the international television network Russia Today. In Zimbabwe, a new terminal at Harare Airport, the busiest airport in the country, was officially inaugurated. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Alena Rosabal from the TeleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. With climate change causing heavy rains and rising sea levels, many of Brazil's cities are struggling to adapt. In Recife, our correspondent Brian Meyer has more details.
Rainy season is underway again in northeastern Brazil, and in low-lying coastal cities like Recife, this means that entire neighborhoods are suffering from flooding, a phenomenon which is being exacerbated by climate change.
The water came from the canal up through our plumbing because our house is low. It rose and ruined a lot of things, like my sofa and my TV. It ruined everything. The government said they were going to visit our house to verify that the water had come in, but no one ever showed up.
According to the UN, Recife is the world's 16th most vulnerable city to climate change. With over 100 rivers and canals, around 30% of the city lies at sea level, with the remaining 70% on hillsides, creating an amphitheater effect that channels rainwater into the lowland. High tides push seawater into the rivers and canals, causing them to frequently overflow during heavy rains.
A heavy flood hit my house, 1 meter of water, and since the house is low, we had to move out. I'm still living in the chapel.
In April, Recife's city government received a $260 million loan from the Inter-American Development Bank to relocate residents out of vulnerable areas. But its primary focus so far seems to be working in hillside favelas to prevent deadly landslides.
The floods are happening more frequently and more quickly. The rivers start to overflow much faster. We know that there are 54 neighborhoods where people are living.
The authorities of the municipality of Shanqing in China reported that more than 9,700 residents were evacuated following heavy rains that intensified on Thursday. The storm lashed 41 towns and neighborhoods in Shanqing, with a record maximum daily rainfall of 227 millimeters recorded in Guangzhou district, according to the local weather service. The District Emergency Management Office said that more than 300 hectares of crops were affected by the rains and dozens of houses were damaged or collapsed. Incidents such as landslides and floods in small and medium-sized rivers were reported in the midst of the current storms, with no fatalities reported yet. In South Korea, monsoon rains have left 10 dead, 3 missing, and thousands evacuated. According to reports by Asian authorities, 9 of the 10 dead were inside a building that collapsed as a result of landslide in Nonsan, 150 kilometers south of Seoul. 2 of the 3 missing people are feared dead as a result of another mudslide in Bongwon town. Meanwhile, in the center of the country, approximately 8,000 residents of Gyeongsang County and the city of Seongju have been evacuated after the dam in this area started to overflow. Low-lying areas in India's capital, New Delhi, remain flooded on Saturday, despite the river's Yamuna's water levels slowly starting to recede. The water level of the Yamuna River flowing through the Indian capital took a 40-year record, exceeding 207 meters or above 680 feet on Wednesday evening. Schools and colleges were closed after record monsoon rains led to the massive waterlogging, caved-in roads, collapsed homes, and will-load traffic in large part of northern India, killing more than 100 people within 2 weeks. The monsoon season between June and September brings most of the South Asia's annual rainfall. Let's take a short break, but remember you can join us on TikTok at TeleSUR English where you find news in different formats, new dates, and more. All the stories coming up, stay with us. Welcome back. In the United Kingdom, junior doctors have walked off the job to take part in a 5-day strike for a pay rise. Health professionals are continuing their protest, which began on Thursday, 13 July, for the third day in a row, demanding better pay. UK-based doctors complain that their purchasing power has been eroded over the past 15 years due to the inflation in the country. The health workers' representative claims that salaries should be increased by up to 35% and have rejected the government's proposed 5% rise. The government, for its part, says that the health workers' demands are irrational and that the strike is putting patient safety at risk. In Italy, airline workers and some pilots go on strike to express their dissatisfaction at the non-renewal of their collective agreements. The strike called by the air transport unions began at 10 a.m. and will last until 6 p.m. local time. The mobilized workers are demanding the renewal of their collective agreement, which expired 6 years ago. According to local media reports, hundreds of flights have been cancelled as a result of the strikes, most of them domestic and some with European destinations such as Madrid, Amsterdam, and Barcelona, affecting more than 250,000 travelers. Workers at Gatwick Airport, London's second busiest airport, announced a strike from Friday, July 28th to Tuesday, August 1st, and another from Friday, August 4th to Tuesday, August 8th. On the second day of the official visit to Portugal, Cuban President Miguel Díaz-Canel holds meetings with groups of Cubans living in the country. In the framework of these meetings, Díaz-Canel talked about the country's current situation, marked by the tightening of the U.S. blockade and the effects of the pandemic. For their part, the Cubans living in Portugal spoke about their experience, life projects, and the link with the island, as well as a desire to support the development of the homeland. Before this meeting, the head of state visited the Museum of Aljuve, a space for resistance and freedom, together with representatives of the Portuguese Communist Party. This place is a monument to those who fought against Antonio Salazar's dictatorship. The official visit of the Cuban president began on Friday, July 14th, with a meeting with his Portuguese counterpart, Marcelo Rebelo de Sousa, in order to strengthen cooperation between the two countries. During the meeting, the presidents acknowledged the good state of bilateral relations and reiterated the rejection of the illegal U.S. blockade against Cuba. The Portuguese president affirmed that the interest in the future with Cuba comprises the strengthening of relations and bilateral cooperation in strategic sectors such as culture, economy, and diplomacy. For his part, Díaz-Canel thanked the Lusitanian authorities and stressed that his visit is part of the context of the European Union Select Summit to be held on July 17th and 18th in Brussels, Belgium. On Saturday, Azerbaijan accused Armenian separatists in the Nagorno-Karabakh region of using radar interference against a passenger aircraft. Azerbaijani President Ilham Aliyev and Armenian Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan are set to meet on Saturday in Brussels for a round of talks aimed at resolving the conflict for the control of Armenian-populated Karabakh. European Council President Charles Michel will mediate the discussions which come amid renewed tensions after Azerbaijan closed the Lachin Corridor, the only land link between Karabakh and Armenia. On Friday, some 6,000 people rallied in Karabakh to demand the reopening of this corridor. UN says 299 children died in Mediterranean crossings this year. An UNICEF global lead on migration and displacement, Brennan Naus, says that the number of children who have lost their lives while attempting to cross the Mediterranean Sea to reach Europe has doubled in the first half of this year compared to the same period last year.
So the number of children that have lost their lives while attempting to cross the Mediterranean to reach Europe has doubled compared to last year. And driven by conflicts in Sudan, in DRC, in West Africa, but even as far away as Afghanistan, and by the impacts of climate and climate hazards from droughts to heat waves that we just discussed earlier, we are seeing that more and more children are forced from their homes, and more children are actually forced to take these high-risk journeys across the sea to reach Europe. This year, so in the first 6 months of this year alone, 289 children have died. This is almost the equivalent of an entire plane load full of children that just died. This is also equivalent to around 11 children dying every week. If you do the math, it's almost 2 children a day.
UNICEF Global Lead on Migration referred to the causes that are leading to the death of children.
Children are dying because there is an absence of safe and legal routes. Children are dying because there are no robust search and rescue capacities deployed to prevent such deaths. And children are dying because they are so desperate in their countries and unable to seek protection in countries they cross.
We have a second short break coming up, but before we invite you to visit our YouTube channel at TeleSUR English. There you'll be able to rewatch our interviews, top stories, special broadcastings, and more. Hit the subscribe button and activate the notification bell to stay up to date on the world's more recent events. Final short break, don't go away. Welcome back. The Russian government condemned the attack against journalist Margarita Simonian, director of the international television network Russia Today. In declaration to the press on Saturday, the spokeswoman for the Russian Foreign Ministry, Maria Zakharova, announced that the assassination attempt against Simonian and the Russian journalist Ksenia Sobchak provide further proofs about the fact that Volodymyr Zelensky's regime in Ukraine is a terrorist organization. She also recalled a whole series of Ukrainian attacks, including those against several Russian public figures. Zakharova explained that this was not the first assassination attempt against Simonian, since her professional activities grant her systematic death threats. In Zimbabwe, a new terminal at Harare Airport, the busiest airport in the country, was officially inaugurated. Authorities of the African nation and China participated in the inauguration of the project, which consisted of the renovation and expansion of the Robert Gabriel Mugabe International Airport and was carried out with Chinese funds. The terminal is part of a series of projects that constitute an integral strategic partnership between Zimbabwe and China. Among other projects, Beijing has financed the new parliament building, the expansion of the Hanwha thermal power plant, and the National Phase 3 mobile broadband project. Prime Minister Narendra Modi held talks with the President of the United Arab Emirates, Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan, to further deepen the multi-faced bilateral ties. Modi received a ceremonial welcome in Abu Dhabi at the Qas Al Watan, the presidential palace, where he was received by the UAE president with a warm hug. The Indian premier arrived in the capital after his successful two-day visit to Paris, where he joined French President Emmanuel Macron for the Bastille Day parade as a guest of honor and signed several agreements to strengthen bilateral ties. India and the UAE agreed to initiate trade settlement in their currencies and lead India's unified payments interface with the Gulf countries' instant payment platform. On Friday, Sudan's capital experienced a communications blackout for several hours as the army and paramilitary forces waged intense battles. The source of the malfunction was not clear, though mobile and internet networks were restored by the afternoon. Throughout the day, columns of black smoke were seen rising near the army headquarters in the center of Khartoum, as well as in the southern part of the city. Witnesses in northern Khartoum said there were clashes using all kinds of weapons. In addition, in Omdurman, witnesses reported fighter jets and drones flying overhead. Since April 15, the Sudanese army has been at war with the paramilitary rapid support forces, leaving at least 3,000 people dead and more than 1.7 million displaced. On Friday, the Senegalese government announced that the death toll had risen to 14 and 4 injured, following the capsizing of the pirogue in St. Louis. A previous death toll established by Interior Minister Antoine Felix Abdallah Diom during a visit to St. Louis the same date had been 8 dead and 4 injured. All state services have mobilized to provide support and comfort to the survivors. The text gave no detail on the circumstances of the new tale of 14 or on the survivors or the number of people on board the boat. The local press reported that 6 new bodies had been discovered on the coast near St. Louis. According to local media, the boat was carrying migrants and the death toll could be much higher as these pirogues are often crowded and can hold dozens of people. We have come to the end of News Brief. You can find this and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm Allen Embrosabal. Thank you for watching.